We're live.
Oh, awesome. So, we're live streaming this event, this Arbor Day 2021, City of Branson. So, thank you all for joining us on Facebook and everyone that's joined us here at Alexander Park. We're doing it a little bit different this year since there's still restrictions of COVID. We wanted as many people as possible to be able to participate in the Arbor Day celebration. So, I hope you all are joining on Facebook this year. Another thing we're doing this year, we've partnered with the Missouri Parks and Recreation Association, and they are running a campaign called Show Me Your Roots. So we're going to focus today on the role of roots, and we're going to actually plant a bald cypress tree, so you're going to see a root ball and exactly how to plant the tree. And we have our mayor, Ed Akers, here today as part of our annual Arbor Day event. We always have the Arbor Day proclamation. So Mayor Akers, it's your turn.
Thank you. Hey, welcome. It's a beautiful day out here, and I'm glad you're able to join us by streaming. I got to do this 2 years ago, and it was really an enjoyable occasion. We planted a tree over by the senior center, and the tree is still growing, by the way. It's still working. It's working its way up. But I get the honor to read a proclamation, and I love to do this because it's a special time. In honor of Arbor Day here in Branson, Missouri, we're going to celebrate by giving this proclamation. Whereas in 1872, J. Sterling Morton proposed to the Nebraska Board of Agriculture that a special day called Arbor Day be set aside for planting trees. And whereas Arbor Day is now observed throughout the nation and the world, and whereas trees can reduce erosion of our precious topsoil by wind and water, cut heating and cooling costs, moderate the temperature, clean the air, produce oxygen, and provide habitat for wildlife. And whereas trees capture and slow rainfall, their roots filter water and recharge our aquifers, reduce stormwater runoff from our streets and other hard surfaces, which in turn decreases the cost to the city stormwater system and the flow of polluted waters into our lake. Whereas trees, wherever they are planted, are a source of joy, spiritual renewal, while promoting the well-being of this and future generations. And whereas we, too, the citizens of Branson, also observe and celebrate National Arbor Day. Now, therefore, I, E. Ed Akers, Mayor for the City of Branson, do hereby proclaim this day of April 2nd, 2021 as Arbor Day. In testimony thereof, I have signed and set my hand and caused to be affixed the seal of the City of Branson on the first day of April, 2021. Signed, E. Ed Akers, Mayor. Thank you. And I think it's appropriate when we're talking about the new program in Missouri and roots. These are my roots. This is my country. I used to, as a kid, ride horses here. Homer Caulfield had a horse stable down by the bridge. And this was the riding area and on up as far as they could go this way. So this is my root area right here.
Thank you for sharing that. That's great. I'll take that one.
All right. I need to give that to someone.
Yes, cool. You might just Okay, moving on. I have an awesome helper today. He is one of our current tree keepers. He is a retired school teacher here in Branson. He's a runner, an all-around good tree guy. Clark, would you like to tell everybody about our Tree Keepers program?
Sure.
Yeah.
Thank you, Amy, and thank you, Mayor Akers, particularly for your support through the years that you've given to the natural community that we have here. And as we've talked before, you and I have talked before, it's the original infrastructure, having our trees, our vegetation, and I really appreciate the support you've given to the community all these years for all of our natural beauty that we have. So thank you, Ed, for that.
Thank you. We got to work together when I was on the school board. You're still remembered by those folks who taught.
A few of my former students still out there. Still out there. Well, we're going to round a few of them up and talk about Tree Keepers. So, Tree Keepers is an organization of volunteers, and it's run through the park board, which I happen to be a member of too. Amy is our facilitator for that, and basically you kind of commit to about 24 hours a year. We we meet several times during the year. Amy always has a lesson for us about how to take care of our trees, how to encourage the development of our forests and of our canopy. And then we do a little work. It's not major, over strenuous type work, but it's stuff that gets you out there and makes you appreciate nature and all of its activities. So I would encourage you to go to the bransonmo.gov website where it says, what would you like? Just type in tree keepers. It'll take you right to that area. And then there's phone numbers you can call the park board. You can get the park department, get in touch with Amy Jackson, and she'll just get you started. We'll be ready to go. So thank you all, and thank you, Amy, for all your hard work, and what a great program you started up. And the ability to take care of our natural surrounding is just so important to this community, and I'm happy to be a tiny little part of it. And I know that Janet, Amy, and Cindy, and Brian, all of the guys are just doing a fantastic job of keeping our natural environment the way we want it.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Clark. So, what I mentioned earlier is the Show Me Your Roots campaign. And when we're talking about tree roots, let me show you our tree root here, our root ball. Now, tree roots, this has been soaking in water pretty much all day. I got all the potting soil off because I wanted everyone to see what a root ball can look like. This one was in a container, a 3-gallon container. Now, there are 4 major functions of tree roots. Does anybody know the 4 major functions of tree roots?
Provide water.
They provide water, yes. They absorb water and nutrients from the soil. What else? Anybody
Stability
know?
for the tree.
Stability, that's right. These guys are what anchor the tree in the ground. So when we have our windstorms, our tornadoes, this is what keeps the guys in the ground. All right, what's another one?
Preventing erosion.
That's right. I've got some smart people here today. They prevent soil erosion. These tree roots are so critical. They hold the soil in place, especially in Branson's topography. Everybody either lives on a hill or at the bottom of a hill. So thank a tree that there's not a bunch of soil in your backyard. All right, what else?
Stores food.
That's right. These roots store the food needed by the trees. We know that deciduous trees, they go dormant in the wintertime. Well, they don't die, they don't go to sleep, they're still feeding. So these roots are critical for those trees to survive our winter. And most of the tree roots, does anybody know most of the tree roots, how deep in the soil are most of our tree roots?
12 inches.
The top 12 inches are where the majority of our tree roots are. Tree roots are going to survive where they get oxygen, water, and nutrients. So it's very important to give trees as much good soil as possible so that they're happy where they're at and they don't start popping up to the surface and they don't start getting in our streets and our sidewalks. So we want to make sure we have enough soil for our tree roots to grow. All right, now for the favorite part of the event, we're going to plant this tree. That's my favorite part.
All right.
All right, Clark, you mind to come help me? All right, so you go to the store or you go to the nursery and you bring your cute little tree home. So the first thing you should have done was to call Dig Right. That way we don't hit any underground utilities. And the second thing you need to do is look up. There's no overhead over here, so always make sure you look up and you call Dig Right. So you get your tree home, you get your hole dug. Next thing you want to do is make sure that when you fill it back up, that, I want to bring this tree close, you want to find the primary root and where the tree actually starts to flare out. So your primary roots will need to set right at the grade of the soil. You don't want to bury it because what will happen, as you can see, this was buried in the container, adventitious roots will start to grow. And we don't want that. Those will eventually start circling and could girdle the stem of the tree at some point in its life and die. So we found the primary root, we pruned off those adventitious, so now we're going to fill back in our hole and make sure that this is sitting right at grade.
Amy's a natural teacher. She's really good.
All right, will you grab that rake, Clark, and we'll make sure that this is a trick you can use, any straight shovel or handle. So we got a little bit, this will show us our grade, so we got maybe a couple more inches. All right. sometimes what you can do is create a little platform of soil to set your root ball on so that you're either at grade or just slightly above. I think we're good.
Are we good?
Yeah, let's start. And make sure your roots are spread out laterally. They don't need to go in a corner or around. You want to spread them out. Grab some water. And while you're putting your fill back in, it's a really good idea to water the tree and kind of basically create a slurry. If you're like me and you made mud pies as a kid, that will help you now. You essentially want to make a mud pie.
Hey, you look like a
root.
pro.
Yeah. I made awesome mud pies.
Yeah.
So I'm good at planting trees. And now, just letting you know, moms and dads, the kids will get muddy when they're doing this, but that's okay. Once this slurry dries, it will act like a concrete and seal this in. And that way the tree will be stable
Awesome.
and love it. Yeah. It helps to have a good assistant, too.
He looks competent.
He is a good
Thank you.
assistant.
Bring on the soil.
Right.
Well, you have to have the microorganisms, you know. Soil's not sterile. You don't want sterile soil. You want soil with all sorts of organisms, fungi particularly.
Yes.
Sets up a relationship between the tree. In fact, if you have adjoining trees, the roots will actually communicate with each other. So two trees close together of the same species will actually encourage each other by communication through the roots. So the more trees you have, the better.
Getting good. Okay. Did anybody have any questions?
Gary Gates said something about that's a fine looking tree, Amy. Get it? So, if you.
It's a bald cypress,
That's right. It is a bald cypress.
They do
Any
well
idea
under
about growth?
wet conditions.
They do. This park is in a floodplain. So bald cypresses, they're one of my favorite trees because they not only do well in floodplains, but they do good in urban and dry conditions. So this tree is really versatile. And part of the Show Me Your Roots campaign, Missouri is turning 200 years old this month, and so we partnered with them and said, hey, we're going to help you plant 200 Missouri native trees. So the bald cypress is actually more native in the southeast Missouri where it's swampy, but it does really great here. And we've also planted a white oak. And white oak is native to Missouri also. So
How long will it take to grow, Amy?
the bald cypress is a slower growing tree, but it will reach up about 70 feet. Yeah, so this gets pretty tall. And the bald cypress kind of keeps a nice pyramidal shape. So these are a really good tree species for street plantings. Whereas like the white oak has more of a spreading out.
There's a saying that wise is the person who plants a tree knowing that they may never set in its shade.
Yep. It's a great quote.
And the case is here.
There's your philosophy.
Yeah.
You got that right now.
Oh yes, definitely. And does anybody know how long a white oak can live?
150 years.
Okay, you said 150. Anybody else?
200.
200?
250.
250? Cindy, you got a guess?
That seems like a really long time. I'm going to go lower, 100.
All right.
It's like the price is right.
Average is between 300 and 600 years old.
Oh,
Wow.
So, when you're planting a white oak with your grandkids, just know that tree could possibly live for 600 years.
So that Liberty tree that we had down on the lakefront could have been
Yeah.
500 or 600 years old, maybe?
Exactly, yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
And don't go by the size of the tree
No.
on its age, because even some skinny guys can be really old.
Yeah.
They're, the competition around them, they don't get as big as some of these out in the park where they've got room to grow. So don't ever be
The narrow range.
caught off guard on that. But all right, so after you get your tree in there and you got your mud pie good and wet and muddy, now we're gonna do some mulch.
Keep it moist. All right.
Right. key with mulch is don't go more than 3 inches deep, and you want to completely encircle the tree out to the canopy. So as the canopy of the tree grows, so should your mulch ring. And the mulch does many things. It helps suppress weeds. I mean, if you live in the Ozarks, you know what Bermuda grass is. So mulch helps suppress those weeds. It keeps the temperature of the soil cooler so that the roots will stay moist longer. And it helps retain that moisture also below the ground. So we're going to keep it spread out here. And you never want your mulch to touch your tree trunk. Because what mulch will do, again, like I said, it retains moisture. You don't want moisture to be setting up against the trunk of your tree. Because that will soften the bark, and then therefore damage can occur. Pests, diseases, that's a gateway for all of that. So, now what I'll do is the trees that we plant, we keep them on a 3-year establishment routine. So for the next 3 years, this is one of my babies. So we'll take care of this guy, keep him watered, keep him weeded, refresh the mulch every year, and this is going to hopefully have a really long life here at Alexander Park. Well, thank you all for joining us today. Thank you for coming out. This is a beautiful spring day. Happy Easter, everybody, and get out there and plant a tree this weekend. Bye.
Hey.